Hi guys, welcome to Mythical Monday. It's exciting. I love these days. I love sharing you guys fairy tales or myths or fables. This one is awesome. It's one of my favorite characters in a lot of African folktales that I read about, and his name is Anansi. He is the Spider King, the trickster god, or the storyteller. He always holds all the stories. He also creates a lot of tricks and gets his way through tricking people. In some stories, he's the hero and he tricks people for good. In other stories, he's kind of like the villain and his tricks are bad. But I love reading about Anansi. So great. And this story is really cool. I love this one. It is a West African folktale. And I've read many different versions of this. So this one is specifically called Anansi and the Box of Stories. But a lot of the fairy tales that deal with him getting stories and him being able to hold the power to be a storyteller, you'll find is very similar. So you might be very familiar with the story, just might be a little different. The tricks and the characters that he runs into or has to collect might be a little different. Can't remember the other one that I was reading that was very similar to this one, but I love this. I also love his wife's character. So great. She's actually the brains of the whole thing too. So I love seeing their partnership. But I'm going to go ahead and get started reading this. So let me just pull up my book. Okay, I found the book now. I'm going to share my screen. Anansi and the Box of Stories, adapted by Stephen Krensky and illustrated by Jeni Reeves. I also want to say how much I love the illustrations in this book. To me, illustrations are another huge thing about children's stories, and the illustrator did an amazing job with this. So, long ago, the first spider, Kawaku Anansi, lived in Africa. He swung on his webs from tree to tree or ran out on his thin legs along the ground. In the distant time, no one told stories on earth. Why? No one had any to tell. The sky god Neme kept them all to himself up in his sky kingdom. The stories told of happiness and sadness and the mysteries of the world. Many creatures asked Neme to share the stories, but the sky god refused. Anansi was curious about the stories too. So when he went to see Aneme, the sky god waved him away. You are only a spidery old man. How will you ever pay for my stories? Anansi knew better than to argue with the sky god. I only want to know the price, he said. I don't yet know if I can pay. Neme laughed again. Very well. I will trade you my stories for 4 fierce animals. First is the python Onini, the snake that swallows people up. Second is Morboro, the hornets that buzz and sting. Third is Osibo, the leopard whose teeth are as sharp as knives. And fourth is the fairy Momotia, who stays unseen in the wind. Oh, that is a high price, said Anansi. Such stories must be wonderful indeed. Then he bowed and returned to earth. When Anansi got home, he told his wife Aso what Neme had said. I am no match for these creatures in strength or speed, Anansi said. How can I capture Onini? If I make a mistake, he will surely swallow me. A python's strength lies in its body, not its brain, said Aso. You must outsmart him from the start. She paused. To do this, you will need a palm branch and some long vines. Then she explained the rest of the plan. Anansi took the branch and the vines out to the stream where Onini lived. Onini is a great python, Anansi said loudly. I am sure he is longer than this branch. Onini listened from the leafy shadows, and Anansi's words confused him, so he slithered out onto the path. What's that you're saying, Spider? The python asked. I was talking about you, Anansi said. You see this branch? My wife also said that it was longer than you. I told her she was wrong. This branch could be no longer than the greatest snake in the world. But my wife is very stubborn. She said I should come see you and find out for once and for all. Put the branch next to me, said Onini. I will stretch out my full length. Then we will see who is telling the truth. Anansi put the palm branch down, and Onini leaned against it. Well, Onini asked. Patience, said Anansi. I must measure carefully. As he talked, he bound the python to the branch with the long vines. Over and over, he wound them around. So what have you learned? Onini asked at last. Good news, said Anansi. I was right. You are a little longer. Onini was pleased as the greatest snake in the world could be. So now you can release me, he said. I wish I could do that, Anansi said. But there is also bad news. I must take you to Aneme. So Anansi spun a web around Onini and carried him back to the sky god. If Naeme was surprised to see Onini, he hid it well. I will take this python, he said to Anansi, but you are not done yet. Anansi returned home to share the news with Aso. All is well, she said, and yet your face is long? What can I do about Maboro? Nancy asked his wife. I cannot wrap them in vines. Aso nodded. Hornets that buzz and sting will slip through even nimble fingers, but hornets are nervous and quick to worry. First, you must fill an empty gourd of water with water. Anansi understood. After he filled the gourd, he went walking through the forest. Bzzz. Anansi heard Maboro buzzing overhead. He climbed up a tree above them. Then he sprinkled some water from the gourd onto the nest. The hornet buzzed louder. The rain is coming! The rain is coming! We will all get terribly wet! Anansi cut a large leaf from the tree and held it over his head. Then he took the rest of the water and poured it over the leaf. The rain is falling! Anansi shouted as the water dripped around him. We know! Cried Mimboro. But what can we do? You are lucky I'm here, said Anansi. If you come inside my gourd, the rain will not reach you. The hornets did not hesitate. They flew right into the gourd. When they were all inside, Anansi plugged up the gourd and spun a web around it. You will be safe, very safe from the rain now, he said. Then he returned again to Name in the Sky Kingdom in the clouds. The sky god took Maboro as he had Onini. I will take the hornets, he said, but you are not done yet. Again, Anansi returned home. Oh, what can I do about Osibo? He asked his wife. I cannot wrap him in vines or catch him in a gourd. And his teeth are as sharp as knives. It would be wise to keep him at a safe distance, said Aso. You must start with a large hole. Anansi nodded. He knew what his wife meant. As he dug such holes before, Anansi returned to the jungle and found Osibo's tracks. Then he dug a deep hole. Then he covered the hole with leaves so it was hard to see. The next morning, Anansi returned to the hole. Osibo was prowling around the bottom. What was happening here? Anansi called. Osibo growled at him, showing his teeth like knives. What do you think? I did not see this hole in the darkness and I fell in. How unlucky, said Anansi. This should be a lesson to you not to wander around in the dark. I do not care about lessons now, said Osibo. I care about getting out. Whoever dug this hole will return soon to take me away. Perhaps I can help, said Anansi. I see long sticks here. If I lower them down, maybe you can climb up on them. Hurry, said Osibo. We may not have much time. So Anansi put down the sticks. Osibo placed his paws on them. The sticks are wobbly, he complained. I'm doing the best I can, said Anansi. You must stay low and hold on tight. Osibo crept up the sticks, keeping his head down. But when he was almost out, Anansi hit him over the head with a club. Osibo groaned. Quickly, Anansi spun his strongest web string around the leopard and the sticks. What are you doing? Osibo roared. This is no escape. True enough, Anansi admitted, for I must take you to Neme. Anansi returned to the sky god. Neme was not surprised to see him. I will take the leopard, he said, but you are not done yet. Anansi was happy he had captured 3 of Neme's creatures, but how would he ever capture Mimotia? How will I find a fairy who is invisible? He asked Aso. You cannot find her, Aso said. You must make her find you. Anansi started by carving a wooden doll. Then, when he was finished, the doll looked almost real. Anansi covered it with sticky gum from a plant. Anansi took the doll to the odum tree, where he knew the fairies played. He then poured some yams in a bowl until they became a tasty paste. He put the bowl in the doll's lap. Then Anansi tied a vine to the doll's neck and went off to hide in the bushes. Before long, Mimotia came by. She saw the doll sitting alone under the odum tree. She also noticed the pounded yams. May I have some of your food? She asked hungrily. Anansi pulled on the vine he had tied to the doll's neck. The doll nodded. Mimotia started eating and eating. Soon the bowl was empty. She wiped her mouth, stood up. Thank you, she said to the doll. The doll said nothing. I said thank you, Mimotia said again. The doll remained silent. Where are your manners? Asked Momotia. I have thanked you twice and you will not answer. This is no way to behave. You need to be taught a lesson. Oh dear, I don't know what happened to the rest of my pictures, guys. I'm sorry.
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in 15 minutes, and the computer is now.
Okay, I apologize. I don't know what happened to the last of my pictures. That was really bad of me. Okay, I'm going to finish reading the story. I love the story. We're here on this page. I have it right here. Okay, so I'm just going to have to show it up to you like this. I don't know what happened. Okay, you need to be taught a lesson. Mimotia grabbed the doll's shoulder. She tried to pull her hand away, but it was held on tight. She grabbed the doll with her other hand. Splat! Now Mimotia was really mad. She kicked the doll with one foot and then the other, but both were stuck as well. Anansi stepped out from the bushes. What have we here? He asked. Mimotia vanished at once, but that did no good. Visible or not, her hands and feet were stuck tight to the doll. So Anansi spun a web around Mimotia and brought her up to Neme. When the sky god saw them, he called together everyone in the kingdom. Hear me, he told them. Anansi has met my price. My stories are now his, to do with as he pleases. When Anansi got home, he shared the stories with the Asso. They laughed and cried and even shouted in surprise at the endings. But they did not keep the stories to themselves. They told them to others, and still to this day. The end. So I apologize for the last 2 pages, but I love that story. I love how Anansi got all the stories, and then instead of keeping them all to himself, he shared them with everybody. So now everybody in the world has stories. So it's thanks to Anansi that we have a billion books. You can look at it like that, at least. But also in the back of this book, I really liked reading the afterword because it tells you kind of where the Anansi came from, which is West African folklore. And his story began with the Ashanti people of Ghana. So I learned a lot reading the back of this, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I did. Thank you so much. Bye.